I'm a little bit emotional today because our ruling party in the as we came to the end of the 1890s, we were on the verge of victory against apartheid South Africa. But as they say sometimes, the darkest hour is before dawn. What transpired in 1989 as Namibia was getting to be independent was that the negotiations had dragged on for some time. Finally, the United Nations was implementing the relevant resolutions. But the South African army, the apartheid army at that particular time, wanted to have a last attempt at defeating the National Liberation Movement of Namibia and of Southern Africa. It was strong, it was still strong. It had been defeated in the battlefield by the support of the Cubans to our fellow National Liberation Movements in Angola, the Great Battle of Quito Kinabale, where the South Africans were humiliated for the first time by an African army. So their sense of invincibility was gone. But their push at that last time, at that hour, put SWAPO on the defensive, because there was an outcry that why were they trying to go back home with their soldiers when the people were, when they were anticipating that there would be freedom. And we had a defensive Mozambique which had been forced to sign the Ngomata Accord at that particular time by South Africa, which was still very strong. So the burden of trying to preserve the situation in favor of the liberation forces fell on the frontline states, who are the precursor of the SADC which we have today. And Zimbabwe had the stronger economy and the strong organizational capacity and the proximity to Namibia. And we had to come to the rescue of a difficult diplomatic and military situation as the Zimbabwe and the frontline states. That's how I was recalled. I was recalled home and deployed to Namibia under the guidance of the current President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Zim Namibia. Of course, with our late President being the superintendent of the diplomacy to rescue a very difficult situation. That's when I started working with Comrade Agegengo in Namibia at that particular time. It was a perilous time, it was a challenging time, but the years of him as a cadre of the party, when he went to war as a young man to Zambia, coming from a little Namibia in terms of population, big country, little population, but also coming from the smallest tribe in Namibia, the Damaras, shows the national character which was about him, to say that we are Namibians and we are going to fight for the freedom of our country. He was given the task at that particular time to become the director of elections for SWAPO. I was in Namibia before him, because we came from the United Nations with the frontline states as an observer mission on behalf of the African Union and of the SADC states. We had to prepare SWAPO for the elections because we had gone through the experience of not bullet to office in 1980, but ballot to office, even though we were on the verge of military victory. So we had debunked the myth that liberation movements don't like elections because we knew we had organized people and people were on our side. And we were going to put the detractors who were saying that we want to be like another Vietnam or another China or what, we don't want elections. We had proved it in Zimbabwe. So Namibia was the second test case for the Southern Africa region to show that we know and love democracy. So Namibian delegation was called to Zimbabwe when President Sam Joma designated his director of elections, Hage, to be in charge of the elections. We had a seminar. The men who ran the seminar to prepare the Namibians for the elections which were coming was none other than the current President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Mnangagwa. So it's when you see again today, as we face challenges about elections, people are coming to Zimbabwe. He has been doing that for a long time. He started with the Namibian experience. We went into the elections. I worked very closely with Comrade Hagegengob to rescue that unfortunate military situation into a military victory. He worked hard, Comrade Hagegengob. First, to organize SWAPO. Second, to unify all the Namibians who had been at each other's throats. You know, in a struggle, it's not a walk, it's not a template where you say everything is written and you follow a plan. You make mistakes, you quarrel with each other with this. But Comrade Hagegengob, during that very short period of time, brought all the Namibians who were patriotic, including Professor Kachavivi and the others from America, to come and join in a united front, which made it impossible for the South Africans to manipulate the elections. And one thing which he was a very vigilant cadre. The South Africans expected that the votes shall be brought to Windhoek for counting, and they wanted to swap the votes during the transportation exercise. He was an alert cadre who had fought for many years. He knew the game. He said, no, we'll follow the Zimbabwean example. Voting shall be done on the spot where the people have voted. And when the victory was announced, SWAPO came out tops, and we're all very happy. This is the story of a man who really passionately loved his country. I'm saying this because you have a picture here. Thank you, Insta. That's the picture of one of the few bright spots of Africa's dark episode with imperialism, the Battle of East Ndalwana in South Africa. Those are the pictures when the Zulus claimed victory against the British. But the reality of the 19th century is that we were defeated militarily because we were being led to go into the Industrial Revolution. We were outmatched. You can see spears, you can see the other side, they've got guns. Now, if you take that picture, you now place our army, our military, which is here, wearing uniform, showing that Africa has come of age. We have restored our military virility. Comrade Hagegengob, together with many youths from the sub-region, were the pioneers of restoring the African military pride, which Europe had taken away from us by denying us guns. And we want to thank the Russians in 1917, the first country, European country, to break away from the European gun cartel. When you listen to arms embargoes by Europeans, it's because that's the way they managed to make Africans be indigent, be subjugated. They like arms embargo because they want to maintain absolute military superiority. Comrade Hagegengob spent his youth reversing that aspect of African military fallibility, of being defeated by others. And this is where I want to say the losses to the people of Namibia. I'm first to the family, the losses to the people of Namibia, to the people of the sub-region, and to Africa, especially yesterday when we were honoring the likes of Nyerere. But there's also a particular loss in this instance to our president, because as a young man, he had to work with Comrade Hagegengob in Lusaka in the 1960s to set up what became the future armies which are represented here. Now the Southern Africa region has got its own armies to defend itself. I want to thank the countries which helped us to become militarily potent again. The Chinese, the People's Republic of China, the Cubans, the Ethiopians who trained us 15,000 in Zimbabwe, and of course I mentioned the Russians, those who were progressive countries who went just beyond giving material support to Africa, but to give us the armaments to reverse the defeat, which was symptomatic of what happened at this, during the colonial period. Without our armies, we cannot defend ourselves, we cannot develop. So here is an African son who traversed it all, from young militancy, the political acumen to defeat all the forces of evil at the point of transition, and later to be involved in nation building in a gracious manner. You know, there were divisions in SWAPO. His colleague, Amtenya, left the party. But when he died, Comrade Gob said, I was with him in the trenches. He may have a different party, but his history is written as a militant of Namibia. He made sure that he was buried at Heroes Acre in Namibia. This is a gracious spirit. He saw it, his boldness, every time calling out Europe about the genocide against the Hereros and the Namas in Namibia. You know, the first, we are seeing another genocide in the Middle East today. But the first genocide was in Africa. Of course, there are others, the Indians and the Red Indians and the Aborigines. But in modern history, Namibia was the victim. But it never